Welcome to Volume 2 of Kirsten's educational videos. I promised that I would demonstrate how to make bows. And I just wanted, before I started actually demonstrating, I wanted to actually talk about the supplies you needed and the best type of stuff to use. I like to use satin ribbon. It's this type of ribbon here. It's not satin acetate, which is that papery ribbon that so many dog groomers use. I don't think it holds up as well. It's really papery and it doesn't look very pretty in my own opinion. So this is satin. It is a polyester type of ribbon, but it holds up really nicely and makes really pretty bows. Another option you can use is called gross grain ribbon. I don't know if you can see it. It has little lines. It's a little stiffer than the satin ribbon, but it still makes up pretty bows. One of the most difficult ribbons to use is this type of ribbon. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got this little mesh, plastic mesh, and then it's got satin here. You can still use it, but it doesn't fold up the same, and I actually melt the edges of my ribbon so they don't fray, and this does fray really bad. So that's the type of ribbons you can use. I also sew my bows because then you can sew centers. You can make the gathering of the bow even. It looks really pretty. And for the thread that I use, it's a heavy duty thread. This I believe is a quilting, oh no, it's an upholstery thread. So you can use anything heavy duty, quilting, any of that kind of thread. Of course, needles. There's lots of different types of needles. I like the sharps because they go through really easily. They have a sharp tip and a relatively narrow hole right here. So just look for sharps. Also for the centers that you can use buttons. You can use these type of buttons. You can use buttons with shanks. And a button with a shank has a little back like that. You can see it so that where the thread actually shows through, it's hidden. You can also use beads. And this is just an example of a bead. With the beads, I try to use flat beads because they sit against the actual bow the best. When picking out your centers, one thing to remember is that you don't want to use too large of centers, simply because if a dog chews off the center, you don't want the dog swallowing it and choking on it. So I think a good it's about an inch. You want it smaller than an inch in diameter. By sewing the centers on, you have the best durability. If you actually hot glue the centers in with just a little bit of pressure with your thumbnail, you can pop those right off, and the dogs can do the same. So I actually sew my centers on. It takes a little bit longer to do, but I think it's well worth it. To measure out my ribbon, I use a yardstick. This is a metal one. I also have a wood one. I broke my plastic one, and the easiest way to do it is most of my bows are either 12 inches. I use a 12-inch piece of ribbon, or I use a 6-inch piece of ribbon. So the easiest way to get that measurement is to just take your yardstick and wrap the ribbon around the yardstick. Of course, this isn't working because I'm trying to demonstrate it. You just wrap the entire length around the yardstick. And then using your scissors, you go through and you cut through. There we go. You cut through the layers. When you cut that'll give you 24 inches, and then you can break that down. You can cut that again in half, or you can cut that in fourths, and then you'd have your 6 inches. When you are cutting the angle of your ribbon, I know this is getting really anal, but I actually like it at a 30 degree right here. 45 degrees would be I dropped my ruler. 45 degrees would actually be at a very steeper like that, and then it's too sharp and I don't think it makes up as pretty for the ends. It is as balanced, so about a 30-degree angle to cut them. You want the angles both, and this is for me, you can do it different ways, but see the long end, the long points are on the bottom edge and the short points are on the top edge. That way, and I'll demonstrate really fast, that way when you wrap it together, so that's the basic shape of a bow, you have your bottom points here, and then you have the shorter points up here and up here. And it just is a matter of trying to keep track of when you're cutting your ribbon that, okay, this is at that angle, so the next one will be at that angle, and then the next one will be at that angle. So anyways, that's all pretty straightforward. Also, when you are, so that most of these ribbons are woven, so that with just a little bit of effort and running around on the dog part, this is actually going to fray off. So I actually melt the edges of my my bows. So let's say after this, say I've cut this. After I've cut this, before I do anything else, I'm going to take a lighter and just gently, not too close, but just melt the edge like that. Of course, that's a little too drastic, but anyways, you get that idea. Now it's not going to fray. The other thing you have to remember is that when you're buying ribbon, a lot of this ribbon is used for other craft purposes, for presents, for flower arrangement, that kind of stuff. So they'll have a wire inside it, and you can tell because it's really stiff. But you don't want that wire if you're using this for dog bows, because if you look at the very edge, that is really pokey. That could scratch an eye, that could really hurt the dog. But this can just slide out. So if you push it out, this wire can actually just be removed the entire length, because it's just sewn in to that edge. And what I do is I actually fold the entire length in half, fold it in half, poke the little wire up, and then pull it all the way through and just kind of work it through. So just be aware of that. Some of this ribbon, like the gross grain, I don't think normally comes with wire in the edge, so you don't have to worry about that. And some of the ribbon comes with a plastic filament, almost like fishing line, that's on the edge. I've kind of played with that, and that doesn't seem to be as scratchy. It's a little softer on the edge, so you don't have to worry about that hurting the dog. So I actually leave the plastic filament out, but I do remove all of the wire. Okay, so that's it for your supplies. I'm going to get set up so that I can actually demonstrate a bow, and then we'll go on to the next step.